Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. We invite you to check out all of our social media platforms and outlets. We are on Facebook, on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page, and of course, 12 Ounce Sports. You can subscribe to our YouTube channels, the Captain Lou Sports Network and 12 Ounce Sports. Check out all of our content on 12 Ounce Sports on YouTube and our website, 12ouncesports.com. We've got our daily shows, the Daily Dive, the only daily lacrosse show in the world. Also, we've got Philly Pete with his show every night at 6 o'clock, and that and a whole lot more. And, of course, we've got live sporting events, college lacrosse, college baseball at the NCAA D3 level as things getting really hot here on 12 Ounce Sports, and great to be a part of the network. Always a pleasure. And again, thanks to Jeff Beck for having us back on to finish what we started. Welcome to Masters Week. It is Masters Eve, Wednesday, April the 10th, and the Masters just about set to go. Hopefully tomorrow. The weather is looking a little iffy for Thursday, but hopefully the weather can pass through if they're delayed. They always find a way to get the Masters in, the 88th annual Masters event. And it's going to be a very interesting setting with Jon Rahm, the defending champ, now a member of the LIV Tour. So that's going to add a little more spice to it, if you will, as we've got the two factions at this event, the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour. So it's going to be a fun weekend. If you are a golf enthusiast like I am, and even if you're a scratch golfer, a weekend hacker, this is one of your favorite weekends for golf. And that, of course, is the Masters tournament. And with that being said, we thought it would be apropos to bring on one of our experts when it comes to golf. He's got his own podcast called the Next on the Tee podcast. Chris Mascaro will join us. He's been down to Augusta at least 20 times. He's covered it. He's been there as a spectator. We're going to get some great insight. He's interviewed a lot of great guests, including the late, great Ben Wright. He's interviewed players that have played at the Masters, and I invite you to listen to his podcast series. If you're a golfer, you've got to subscribe to the Next on the Tee podcast. So Chris Mascaro is going to join us coming up here in about 5 minutes. We'll play that interview. We had a chance to talk to Chris on Monday, and I'm very gracious with his time. Really looking forward to bringing that interview with you. It's going to be, I think you're going to enjoy it. It was a lot of fun talking Masters golf with Chris. Also tonight, we're going to talk a little Red Wings losing a heartbreaker last night, 2-1 to the Washington Capitals, actually Tuesday night. And Detroit's got a tough road to hoe now to get to the playoffs. They've got 4 games left, and I would have to say they're pretty much in a must-win situation. If they win all 4 of their games, there's a pretty good chance they're going to make it. That would mean Washington would have to win out or tie them. They would have to go 3-0-1. So, yeah, Detroit's got to win them all. They win them all, I think there's a pretty good opportunity they're going to win, but they've got 3 road games to deal with, starting Thursday at Pittsburgh, a team that they're tied with right now. Then they got to go to Toronto on Saturday night. That's never an easy task. And, of course, a home and home with Montreal. So we'll talk more about that. And also the NCAA Frozen Four is on tap this week, starting Thursday. Boston College in Michigan, they're in the nightcap. Boston University and Denver start things off tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're a hockey enthusiast, this is a great weekend as well for you, as the NHL season, kind of a wraparound weekend. It ends next Tuesday, and the Frozen Four for the NCAA is this weekend. So a lot to talk about tonight. We want to remind you that we are brought to you, as always, here on the show by Javi Coffee. Go to javicoffee.com if you love instant coffee or if you like coffee at all. This is the way to go. It's very simple to use. It's very clean. It's tidy. You take a couple of teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon, depending on how strong you want it. Hot or cold, if you like the iced coffee variety. They've got all kinds of great flavors too. Regular, decaf, French vanilla, Irish mist, salted caramel, just to name a few. But don't take my word for it. Go to javicoffee.com. And when you're there at checkout, use the promo code Captain Lou, just like it says on the bottom of your screen. You'll get 15% off of your purchase. That is javicoffee.com. And also, we're brought to you, as always, here on the network by tickets.12ouncesports.com. We've got tickets to all the great sporting events, including the Frozen Four, by the way. A lot of great seats available for that matchup, both Thursday and Saturday. And we're a ticket broker, so that means we don't charge the fees that you see at a lot of other places. That is tickets.12ouncesports.com. And of course, we're brought to you by MyBookie as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will indeed sit down and talk to Chris Mascaro from the Next on the Tee podcast. We're going to talk Masters as it's coming just around the bend. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza right here on 12 Ounce Sports.
Do you need tickets? We have you covered. We have soccer from anywhere in the world. Any venue from any sport. That means we have college and professional football. We have baseball at every level. We have every Power 5 matchup. Remember, costumes and paints are optional. You want to see Broadway? We have them too. We have every concert from every artist. We have you covered at tickets.12ouncesports.com. Tickets for less.
And welcome back to the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the eve of the Masters. And we couldn't even begin to talk about the Masters without bringing in our golf expert, Chris Mascaro from the Next on the Tee podcast. So gracious with his time. Chris, welcome back to the show. And I got to ask you, is this your Super Bowl week right here with the Masters tournament?
Are you kidding? First of all, thank you, Lou, for asking me to be a part of your fantastic show. I appreciate it very, very much. But yes, this is my favorite week of the entire year. Christmas might come close, but not. The Masters and Augusta National are my favorite events. Augusta National is my favorite place on the planet. If you said to me, hey, Chris, I'll pick you up and put you down anywhere on the planet that you want. Where do you want to be? I want to be at Augusta National. I am so excited about this week. I look forward to it. The countdown is on, from the moment we, get to next Monday morning, a week from today, I'll be counting it down to the next year. I love this. I love this week.
So it's funny is you talk to people that have been there. I've never had the pleasure. You and I talked before we came on. You've been there quite a few times. For someone like me that watches it, that course doesn't look that difficult. Just explain to us, Chris, the hills, the up and down. It's not like a Sunday stroll at the Grand Ledge Country Club here in Michigan. Talk a little bit about the terrain and what these golfers really have to face playing this beautiful course.
Yeah, to your point, Lou, the thing that television does no justice to is exactly how much elevation change there is from hole to hole and step to step. I'm not sure there's a flat lie on the property. Just to give people context, from standing on the 10th tee, which is right adjacent, obviously, to the 18th green, down the 10th fairway to the 10th green, the elevation change is as large as the Statue of Liberty. That's how big you are traveling downhill, or conversely uphill when you're going up 18. It doesn't look that much. It obviously looks hilly, but you don't really get a feeling for what that's like. And for somebody that isn't used to walking that golf course, it is really trying. I mean, by the time you get to 8, if you're going to be, for a first time goer, if you have an opportunity, please don't pass it up. Yeah. But if you're going to really walk the golf course from 1 tee to 18 green, by the time you get down to that 18th tee and you're trying to trudge your way back up, it's tough. It's very tough. It should be, no question in anybody's mind why it's been tough for Tiger to get through that, particularly if it's cold and rainy like it was last year.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult golf course to walk.
So
Beautiful, but
yeah.
tough.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I mean, the closest I've come to getting there in my lifetime was playing at Pine Mountain at the end of March. Oh my gosh, almost 30 years ago now. And I know that doesn't even do it justice, but boy, it's just such a beautiful scene to watch from afar on TV. Chris, this year with the way the year's gone, do you think the atmosphere is going to be a little different for the 88th Masters with the divide with the Live Tour and the PGA right now? It just seems like there's something different in the air with the golf season so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the divide in our game, it makes it challenging. I think you've probably read some articles here over the last year and probably over the last couple of days for some of the previous champions that are over on the Live Tour. You know, I think Bubba Watson was just talking about that today or yesterday about the Champions Dinner and what it's like, and it's a little different. It's a little awkward for those guys kind of walking into that room and everybody getting together. I was hopeful last year because I think Brooks talked an awful lot about it last year heading into the Masters that, hey, it's no big deal. I mean, I see Rory all the time and it's really not as big of a deal as people think it is. But I think what we have learned since that time, and obviously we were hopeful that all this would have been resolved by now with the deadline that they had put out there for, 12/31, that was going to be, we're going to have it all solved by then. And obviously it's not solved. And I think we still got a long way to go towards getting it solved. I think we got to get it solved pretty quickly. If you've looked at the television ratings, things have gone way down this year. I think it's just because people are tired of this situation. I think it's twofold. I think people are tired of it and they're protesting a little bit by not putting their eyes on golf tournaments. And then I think it's somewhat to do as well of the few tournaments that Tiger Woods has been in, because we know how big of a deal it is when Tiger plays. But I think they got to get this thing solved pretty quickly. But I do, Lou, I'm with you. I think this has been a tough time in our game. I think if whether there's hurt feelings between the players, I think there's a drive to want to get this done, because I think the Live guys want to get back, to be able to play in a tournament like this. I think Joaquin Niemann, even though he got a special invitation to be there, I think he would be, really disappointed. I think Taylor Gooch is very disappointed that he can't get in there, even though he's won several times over on the Live Tour. And I think people look at it and go, the Live Tour, you're only playing 54 holes. It's a shotgun start. A lot of people are down on that sort of thing. So they think it's, much lesser of a golf tournament than something on the PGA Tour. And I was very glad to see today where John Rahm is talking about how he wants to push the guys over on the Live Tour to play 72 holes. Let's get some world golf ranking points out of this thing. But I think it's different. I think it's, anytime there's a divide or a civil war or whatever you want to call it, I think it causes some issues with the players. And I think it feels, to your original point, I just think it feels different. Those guys, we haven't seen them in a long time. We haven't played with them for a long time. And here they are. I think it's going to be interesting to see how John Rahm reacts and how people react to him coming back as the defending champion. It's interesting. If you look at the top four finishers from last year's Masters, all of them are playing over on the Live Tour now.
Yeah.
So I just think that's different, and it's going to feel different for everybody.
And you mentioned John Rahm. I was very surprised that he went over, but it's, what are you going to do? You can't blame the guy. The amount of money that they're still throwing at these guys. It's funny, Chris, as I was listening to a radio interview here in Michigan last week. Dan Olson, who was a fringe player at best on the PGA Tour, he's very outspoken. He said, the thing is some of these players they go home to their wives, and the first thing their wives are saying is, tell me again why we're turning down $150 million to play over there. I mean, that's got to be tough. God bless Rory and some of these other guys for not jumping, but man, oh man, that has got to be tough to turn down that kind of money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's like, we all dreamt of hitting the lottery, and that's essentially what these guys have done. Now, I mean, it's a little different for them because they're out there playing for millions of dollars anyway. And, I think some of the, sports fans will look at it and go, how much is enough? Right. I mean, we say that, I think, all the time when we look at football players jumping from our favorite team to another team, from, going from 15 million to 18 million. Well, how much better is your life at 18 million, but it's still millions of dollars, and it's generational money, right? When you talk about somebody like John Rahm, we're not exactly sure how many hundreds of millions of dollars John ended up with. We've heard 300 million. We've heard 400 million. We've heard 750 million, whatever it is. I mean, this is generational money.
Yeah.
I think where we all kind of want to say to ourselves, kind of from the 40,000 foot level, well, you're taking blood money and you know where it's coming from and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's easy for us to say, looking at it from our vantage point, because we're not in that position. But to your point, whether it's a mother, a father, a family, how many people, what, you turned down $750 million? You got to be kidding me, right? Kind of thing. It would be very hard for any of us to turn our nose up to that amount of money. It is a very big moral issue, and I certainly understand it. And I understand the families from 9/11 and anybody that was impacted or touched by 9/11, whether directly or for those of us that lived through it, to think now that somebody would offer you that kind of money and you would go and leave and do it. So I get the arguments on both sides. How much is your I don't know if integrity is the right thing, or how much is your morality worth to you? What are you willing to sell it for? So those are all very difficult issues. But at the end of the day, it's $750 million in the bank. That's a real hard pass to make. You know what? I think about it. You keep it. I'm good.
Yeah, as Ted DiBiase always used to say, everybody's got a price.
Yeah, for sure.
And I get it. But let's go to the play on the course. I saw a quote from Will Zalatoris this afternoon on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it, and he's played with Tiger today. And that's going to be the question on everybody's mind, Chris. How is Tiger going to do? How is he holding up? He said that's the best he's ever seen him play. Now, we've seen, obviously we've seen him play earlier in his career, back in his 20s and his 30s. But, that's going to be the $1 million question every year. Can Tiger make one more run for the 6th green jacket? From your vantage point and what you've read and what you've seen, how is he doing? What would you think for him would be a successful tournament?
I think, he obviously goes to set the record, right, for the most cuts made at the Masters. To me, that's where success should be. Can he make the cut? How many times over the last, since he won it in 2019, have we actually seen him play 4 rounds of golf? Not many times.
Right.
We saw it back at the Hero World Challenge, but there are only 20 players in there. And of the 20 players, he finished 18th. And obviously we saw at Genesis, he couldn't get through 2 rounds. I think he played 24 holes before whatever it was, the flu or whatever it was that got him. So we haven't seen him play a heck of a lot of golf since 2019. Can he get through 4 rounds of golf? And look, if he does, that's fantastic. And, it's great that he could get through and make the cut. But if you're talking about a course that's going to be difficult to walk, there is no more difficult walk in the pro level of golf than Augusta National. So that's the thing, as we think about his, and he said this not that long ago. He's got 2 fused joints in his body, right? In his back and down in his foot. Yeah. So, what happens? I had Bill Mallon on my show Next on the Tee a few weeks ago, and Bill's a former tour player, played in the mid to late 70s, and then he became an orthopedic surgeon. And he says, hey, when you've got that going on, when you've got fused joints, what happens? Well, the other areas and the areas that aren't fused are now taking, instead of, a balanced weight between where the joints are on both sides, now 100% goes to the other side. And that's what Tiger's talked about. He's like, he's got problems now in other parts of his body that are compensating for where he's got these fused joints. So, it's just going to be difficult to see if he can get through. And look, Thursday, Friday, we're talking about rain and cold temperatures over in Augusta. Saturday, Sunday looks fantastic. So as we saw last week, when it gets cold and damp, it's tough for him. So to me, I think success and the baseline of success is, can he set the record and make the cut?
Well, speaking of Tiger, Chris, I looked at the odds for the Masters tournament this week, and Scotty Scheffler's at plus 450. And if I'm not mistaken, those are the best odds to win the Masters since Tiger was 5-1 or plus 500 back in 2013. Scotty's ranked number 1 in the world. Obviously, he's playing very well. The course, I think, suits him. He's got to be the favorite right now. I mean, and I think he's one of the fan favorites too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, look, he barely missed out on winning 3 tournaments in a row here a couple of weeks ago, right? So, and he comes back as heavy favorite, like you said, and always a guy that it seems like if he's not winning, he's certainly in the top 10. So it'd be hard not to like him as a guy who's already won there. So yeah, I mean, look, the guy is just a phenomenal ball striker. How many other tournaments? And I'm sure you and several other folks have said, if he could putt a little bit better, goodness knows how many tournaments he would have won over the last few years. So I think obviously Augusta National can turn into a putting contest because all these guys can bomb it off the tee. It's really a second shot golf course. Not a lot of rough out there. So how well can you putt? I think that's, his Achilles heel. Can he putt well enough to win this golf tournament? Again, we'll see.
Yeah. And, it's amazing. And I looked at some of the names out there, and one that stood out to me, and I want to bring his name up to you. I don't know how much you've read of him. A guy by the name of Ludwig Aberg over in the European Tour.
Yeah.
They're calling him a generational talent that think that he could score well at Augusta. I've watched some film. I just watched some clips on him on YouTube and whatnot. I kind of like his game coming over here to play at Augusta.
Well, look, no one hits the ball further than he does, and he is a tremendous talent. I think if you go back to a year ago, leading into as we got closer and closer to the Ryder Cup, and he was going to be one of the picks, I was like, really? I mean, the guy's never even played in a major. And you're going to put him on the Ryder Cup team? And wow, did he play really well and surprise all of us. So look, this guy is a really, really good player. He can hit it a long way. Yeah, he's absolutely a talent that could come in here and win. I'd like to see him, win a few other tournaments before I was going to plop down a bunch of money on him. But I certainly think he's got the talent to win for sure.
So I know this is a very vague question, Chris, but I got to ask you. In your mind, who's the best talent out there right now that has not been able to put on the green jacket?
Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of guys out there that have have a lot of talent that haven't put on a green coat. Now, look, some of them are major champions, just haven't won at Augusta National. Justin Thomas comes to mind. I've always been a huge JT fan, so he's a guy that could certainly win. Victor Hovland is another guy that hasn't put on a green coat, but boy, how well did he play at the end of last season and then, to kick off this season? A guy that was really hot for a while. So, yeah, he's a guy that I would, put money on to think that he could get a big win here. I mean, you can go down a huge long list. I mean, obviously Brooks Koepka is a guy, and that's who I think is going to win this week, even though he hasn't played tremendously well so far this season out on the Live Tour. But, look, what does the guy do? All that guy does is win majors. Yeah. He came close last year, right, before going on to win at the PGA. So he's never won a green jacket. JT hasn't won a green jacket. Victor Hovland hasn't won a green jacket. I think any one of those three guys could get it done. Now, you take a look at JT and the switching of caddies and Bones not being under. I thought it was kind of a questionable thing. You're really going to cut him loose right before a major? But for whatever reason, he wants to go a different direction. I think he's got the game for it, but I don't know if you can gel with a caddy and at Augusta National well enough to go out there and actually get the win. But like I say, people have asked me who do you think wins this week, and I say I think Brooks Koepka wins.
All right, well I'll put a sawbuck down on that. I'll take your advice on that one, Chris. We're joined by Chris Mascaro from the Next on the Tee podcast. Does a great job. You've got to check that out. He has some great interviews on there, very insightful and very gracious with his time here tonight on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Chris, you and I have both watched these for a lot of years. And, first it was Jack, the generational talent. Of course, he had a lot of players with him. Arnold Palmer, Seve Ballesteros, some great matches, great rivalries. Lee Trevino there. The list goes on and on. Freddie Couples. And then, of course, Tiger Woods comes along. And, now he's got 5 green jackets, all the majors. I know this is a hard question to answer, but how long do you when do you think we may see another generational talent like those two again?
Well, I think we might be seeing it right now. Look how well Scotty Scheffler has played over the last few years. The guy is, he won back-to-back players now, first person to ever do that, right? No one had ever done that, not Tiger, not Jack. So, the most player championships by anybody is Jack, and that's 3.
Yeah.
Tiger had 2, and now Scotty got 2, boom, boom. So I think we might be seeing the next generational talent unfolding before our eyes. And again, if he goes out and wins this Masters, it's going to be pretty tough to say that that's not the case. Beyond that, could Oberg, to your point earlier, could he be the next generational talent? I'd like to see him win some more. I think he's got all the talent in the world to do it. It would be interesting to have somebody like that that's European, not American, because I think we're used to your point, maybe Hogan handed it to Jack handed it to Tiger, where we're used to all the American talent. But, I think one of the things that we've got to keep in mind is we keep hearing this, buzz phrase, grow the game, right? Everyone's talking about, we got to grow the game. We got to grow the game. Well, anyway, I think we've had an American bias for a very long time. I think if the European Ryder Cup team shows us anything, is we're not as good as we used to be. So maybe it's time for someone, a European talent to be the next generational player. And maybe it is Oberg. We'll find out. But like I say, going back to the original question, and Scotty Scheffler, it's hard to not say that Scotty Scheffler is on pace, on track to be a generational talent. He's won so many times. He's, when he's, like I say, when he's not winning, he's in the top 12. What was it last year? 19 top 12 finishes when he wasn't winning. Again, you got a major and 2 players, pretty strong. You had another Masters in there. And boy, I think you're starting to look at a kid that's in his mid-20s. He's got a couple of majors.
Man,
he's got a couple of players. Boy, what's the leader in the clubhouse right now with majors? Brooks, 5.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You got to say Scotty is going to be on a really nice trajectory. Again, still in his 20s, still got his prime years well in the front windshield, not in the rear view. So it could be him.
So, okay, and we're jumping around a little bit here, Chris. We got a few minutes left. You've been to the Masters quite a few times. You told me since 2001, except for around the COVID year.
That COVID year, yeah.
What's your favorite sandwich there? You always. What's your favorite sandwich?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The egg salad is pretty top notch, but they have a wonderful barbecue sandwich. Don't sleep on their barbecue sandwich.
Okay.
Really, really good. I'm not a pimento cheese guy. I know that's the thing, right? Yeah. Everyone talks about the pimento cheese sandwich, and my wife's a huge fan, but I'm not so much. So yeah, when I'm going through the concession stands. And, plopping down my $5, oh, by the way, for both of those sandwiches.
Is that amazing?
Yeah. I'm going egg salad and barbecue.
All right. They're very good. And I hear their lemonade's pretty good there too.
For sure. Yeah. And, for all of us, and I'm a Pittsburgh guy. That's where I was, born.
Yeah.
For all of us, and as you can see, I'm a huge Jack Nicklaus fan, but I obviously have a huge affection for Mr. Palmer. Yeah. So, we will take the lemonade and the iced tea, right? And you got to make an Arnold Palmer while you're walking around Augusta National, right? Right
on. So that leads me to my next question. I'm trying not to age it too much, Chris, because
that's okay.
I do it. What is the earliest Masters that you can remember as a kid watching when you really started getting into golf?
I was 10 years old, 1975. That's when I became a huge Jack Nicklaus fan. That 75 Masters is still one of my favorite, Masters. I remember a little bit of it as a 10-year-old and the exciting finish that happened. Like I say, that's when I became a huge Jack Nicklaus fan. And then obviously, through the, his wins in the 80s, at the 80 US Open and the PGA, and then obviously 86. That's obviously my favorite it's my second favorite sporting event ever after the U.S. Soviet Union hockey game.
Right.
But the 86 Masters is something that I treasure and watch a bunch. I had the privilege of having the great Ben Wright as a wonderful friend and mentor, and a guy that had been on my show dozens of times.
Wow.
And, I think one of the things, and I was just talking to a buddy of mine shortly before coming on here about, everyone talks about Vern Lundquist and the yes, sir on 17. What people don't know enough is that Ben Wright used that phrase, yes, sir, when Nicholas made the eagle on 15. So 20 minutes before Vern Lundquist came out with yes, sir, Ben Wright had already used that phrase. So, but yeah, 75 is my earliest memory, and that really kickstarted it for me.
So Vern Lundquist, this is going to be his last Masters. 40 years. Hard to believe, isn't it, Chris? It's been 40 years already for him, and it's going to be kind of sentimental to listen to that this coming weekend too.
Yeah, and Jim Nantz has talked about what an emotional Masters it's going to be for him, having worked with Vern all those years, right? I mean, speaking of the 86 Masters, that's when Nantz started. That was his rookie year, if you will, on 16 with Tom Weiskopf when Nicholas hits that shot that almost goes in off the tee. But yeah, it's going to be very emotional for him. And when we lose a voice like that, that's become so synonymous with a golf tournament or sports in general. It sort of, it feels, if you feel it in the heart and you feel it in the chest that, that thing that you're so used to hearing every year is not going to be there anymore. That's a sad thing. And I can imagine for Nantz, again, you go back to it's almost been 40 years that they have worked together. Right.
Yeah.
So to think that, you're going to go back next year and you're going to, throw it to whichever hole that he might be sitting on, that you're used to him being at, at the 15th tower, or 16 or 17, like he was in 86, that's going to be a different person. I imagine that is very emotional for you. So it's going to be emotional for him. I think it's going to be emotional for all of us.
Yes.
Whenever the tournament and the players have decided who wears the green coat, and we've gone through that ceremony and all that sort of stuff, to say goodbye to Vern at the end of that is going to be, I think, difficult for everybody who loves the game of golf, who loves this tournament and all Vern has meant to it.
So we know you've been there quite a few times. Have you ever played it?
No, goodness knows. That's the dream, right?
Yeah,
is to get to put a peg in the ground. And I talk to players all the time, right, that have played there in the Masters. Talk to some media guys who have gone through and gotten lucky enough through the lottery, because on the Masters Monday, the media gets some members of the media get to play it. And I always want to know, like, what's it like to stick a peg in the ground on the first tee for the first time? What's that like? Right. And we all dream about getting that opportunity. I don't know. As I think about it, and like I say, I've stood on that first tee, not playing, but I've stood on that first tee and looked down that first fairway and dreamed about what it would be like. You talk about an emotional moment. For me, I don't know that I could draw the club back, because my eyes would be watering too much, right? To think that I'm actually about to strike a golf ball and play at Augusta National. That would be a very moving moment and meaningful moment in my life.
Well, Chris, this has been an absolute treat to talk about the 88th Masters with you. I know it's your Super Bowl week. If you do get to go down there last minute, good luck and enjoy. But if not, I know you'll be enjoying it in front of the television set or wherever you're going to watch it. So,
indeed,
Chris, tell us what you got next on the tee.
Yeah, so my show Next on the Tee is available out there just about anywhere you get your podcast content. In particular, being a Pittsburgh kid, it's another lifelong dream. The show got picked up a while back by the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. So if you just go to triblive.com and go to the sports section, we're right there on the homepage of the sports section. But again, wherever you get your podcast content, we're available. We're available there. I'm blessed to say over the next several weeks, Tom Patry is one of the top instructors in our game. He joins me every other week, but I've got John Cook coming on the show this week. I've got Owen Brown, Hal Sutton, Mark Calcavecchia, Frank Nobilo, Larry Rinker, again, another great player and instructor coming back to be a part of the show as well. So a lot of really great guests coming up here in the next few weeks coming back to join me, and we'll certainly be talking about the Masters, and we'll wrap it up. And to me, the godfather of golf shows and certainly of the Masters, John Patrick of the Augusta Golf Show, is going to join me as well. We'll wrap up what happened on the week of the 16th or 15th. He would join me at the night of the 16th. But yeah, a lot of Masters content over the next few weeks with guys who actually have gone out there and played the golf tournament. So I'm looking to get their thoughts.
Make sure you follow him at CT Mascaro on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. He's Chris Mascaro, host of the Next on the Tee podcast. Chris, thanks for joining us again. Enjoy the Masters this week. And again, it's been a pleasure.
Same here, Lou. Thank you so much for asking me. It's always a privilege to get to spend some time with you.
Do you need tickets? We have you covered. We have soccer from anywhere in the world. Any venue from any sports. That means we have college and professional football. We have baseball at every level. We have every Power 5 matchup. Remember, costumes and paints are optional. You want to see Broadway? We have them too. We have every concert from every artist. We have you covered at tickets.12ouncesports.com. Tickets for less.
Yes, indeed, we do have tickets for just about every sporting event out there. That is tickets.12ouncesports.com. And as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, we have tickets to the Frozen Four starting Thursday, as it's going to be BC against Michigan in the nightcap and Boston University against Denver. We've got tickets for all of the games, both of them on Thursday, and of course the championship game on Saturday. Welcome back, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Wow, what a great chat with Chris Mascaro of the Next on the Tee podcast, as he mentioned. Follow his podcast, download it. He's got a lot of great guests coming up. He's talked to a lot of luminaries in the world of golf, and what great insight on the Masters starting Thursday, the 88th Masters tournament. And as we mentioned, the weather may be a little dicey on Thursday and possibly Friday, so we may see some weather delays, but it's still going to be a great broadcast, a great tournament. A lot of drama, some intrigue there, as we mentioned, with Jon Rahm, the defending champion, now a member of the Live Tour. So, yeah, it's going to be a great, great event. It's always fun to watch the Masters. It is a one-of-a-kind event starting Thursday, weather permitting. We'll have to wait and see on that, as it sounds like it's going to be quite damp down at Augusta on Thursday, very windy. And if it's going to be as windy as they say, potentially 45-mile-an-hour winds, they won't be having the first round of the Masters being played under those conditions. But again, thanks to Chris Mascaro. Follow him at CT Mascaro on X and the Next on the Tee podcast. He has all of his podcast up. He can tell you when and where they're going to drop. So again, thanks to Chris for joining us. All right, still we got a lot to talk about here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. The Red Wings last night, Wednesday or Tuesday night, dropped a heartbreaker to the Washington Capitals. 2-1 was the final score. It really was 2-0. They got a goal, I think, with 1.3 seconds left to go in regulation time to make it a 2-1 game. A couple of mistakes at the end of the second period cost the Red Wings, as it was pretty much a game that Detroit outplayed Washington, except couldn't get one past the netminder, and that's usually how it goes in the hockey world. The hockey gods just sometimes don't shine on your team when you outplay the other team. You get a hot goaltender, and that's what happened. And Lyon didn't play that well or that bad for the Red Wings either, but unfortunately they just could not solve Washington. the Capitals coming in on a 6-game losing streak. And, when those teams come into your barn, it always kind of scares me because, they're bound to win one. And unfortunately for the Red Wings, they did. So now Washington is a point ahead of Detroit. Both teams, they got 4 games left to go. Still, I see the doom and gloom on social media, and I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to fire Lalonde as the head coach of the Red Wings. Now, the Red Wings, they've got a tough road ahead, but as we mentioned at the top of the show, Detroit wins out, they're going to the playoffs. Now, I know that's a tough ask. It starts Thursday. They've got a road game in Pittsburgh. I'm still always going to call it the Igloo, but it is at Pittsburgh on Thursday. They're both tied. They both have 78 games. They both got 4 games to go. That indeed is going to be the big game. That's almost like a pseudo playoff game. Detroit can go into Pittsburgh and win. Obviously, then they've got to go to Toronto on Saturday. That's going to be a gut buster as well. But then after that, they've got a home and home with Montreal, 2 very winnable games. So if Detroit is still in the playoff hunt going into those games Monday and Tuesday against the Canadiens, I think they're going to get there. I think they're going to make the playoffs now. Again, so obviously this is a Captain Obvious prediction. If Detroit can win all 4 of the remaining games, I think they're going to get in. That would mean that the Capitals would have to go 3-0-1 in their final 4. And I don't know if that's going to happen. But as we said, Detroit's got some Herculean games left, starting Thursday at Pittsburgh and then Saturday at Toronto. And then the back-to-back on Monday and Tuesday, home and home with Montreal. So it'll be very interesting to see on that. A quick look at the standings, the playoff standings in the NHL in the Eastern Conference. We talked about it. We've got the Islanders hold the 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division. So they're 2 points ahead of the Washington Capitals. But the playoff spots, Boston and Florida in the Atlantic and Toronto, they've all got playoff spots clinched. Toronto with 101 points. The first wild card has already been clinched. The Tampa Bay Lightning have 95 points. They can still somehow catch Toronto, but it's looking more and more like it could be a Florida-Toronto opening round matchup and a Boston matchup against probably Tampa Bay. In the Metropolitan, the Rangers have a playoff spot clinched. They've got a 3-point lead over Carolina, who's got a playoff spot clinched. The Islanders have the 3rd seed, as we mentioned, not yet clinched. So there's still room for potentially the Capitals or possibly the Pittsburgh Penguins to jump into that spot, as all 3 of those teams have 78 games played, so 4 games left for them as well. And we mentioned the Capitals right now, they lead the wild card mob scene for that final wild card spot with 85 points. Pittsburgh and Detroit with 84. The Devils or the Flyers at 83. But all of those teams have a game in hand on Philadelphia. So they're 1 point behind, technically not out of it yet. The Devils and the Sabres, they all have 79 points, but the Sabres still got something to play for. And they take on the Washington Capitals. We'll keep an eye on that one. In the Western Conference, the top 3 seeds in the Central Division are all locked up, as it looks like it's going to be the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets have a game in hand on the Avalanche and on the Dallas Stars as well. They're 7 points behind Dallas, though. Dallas with 109, the Avalanche with 104, and Winnipeg with 102. So kind of looks like it's going to be Colorado and Winnipeg playing each other in the opening round of the playoffs. In the Pacific Division, the Canucks and the Oilers have a playoff spot clinched. The Oilers have 2 games in hand on Vancouver yet. Vancouver with 104 points. Still amazing, the run that they've made here in the Pacific Division in the Western Conference. Again, I want to see everybody who had their hand up and said Vancouver was going to get over 100 points and potentially win that division. They've got a pretty good shot at it. But again, Edmonton has a couple of games in hand on them, yet only playing 76. So they've got a lot of games left here in the next 6 days. It's going to be interesting to see how they hold up. The LA Kings, they're sitting in 3rd place with 93 points. The first wild card spot has been clinched by the Nashville Predators with 95 points. And again, you've got Vegas at 92. They've got a game in hand on the Blues and the Wild. Actually, it's all going to come down to the Blues and the Knights for that last playoff spot, it looks like. And they've got a game in hand on the Blues. So it's probably going to come down to the Golden Knights. And then the last question, I think, is going to be who's going to be the third seed and who's going to be knocked out of the playoffs. Is it going to be the Kings or the Knights? The Blues are 5 points behind Vegas and 6 points behind the Kings with 4 to go. And for Vegas, with that game in hand, that's huge right there. So they could overtake LA, with their next game coming up. So that's kind of the playoff picture right now in the NHL, as things getting very interesting. And again, for us Wings fans, still hope. Don't give up just yet. They got 4 games left. Obviously, they've got to win them. And I had said last week, with 7 games to go, they had to take 10 out of 14 to get in. Well, now they've got to get these last 4 games. They've got to get these 8 points. If they do that, I think obviously they'll be ahead of Pittsburgh, and they will have a good chance of shooting past the Washington Capitals to get that final playoff spot. So we'll keep an eye on it. Hey, they're in contention. I know a lot of Red Wings fans don't want to hear that. They want to get in the playoffs, and so do I. I want to see the Red Wings in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. They've got to get there. But they've made improvements. I know it's slow. I know I get it. But they've made some improvements, and they're still there. They're in the hunt. They're going to be in the hunt coming into this weekend. And it's an exciting change. I know it's slow, but it is an exciting change. It's nice for a change to have the Red Wings relevant coming into the final weekend of the NHL season, or the final 6 days, I guess you could say, 5 or 6 days. So we'll keep an eye on that. Finally, tonight, it's the Frozen Four starting on Thursday in the NCAA. And it's going to be Michigan. And it's going to be Boston College in the nightcap. That's going to be a dandy game. It's going to be Boston University in Denver. Boston College, for the most part, all year, one of the top teams in the country. They had a battle for their lives in that last game against the defending national champions, Quinnipiac, having to go to overtime. They were trailing 4-3 in the third period of that one in the regional final, but they were able to come back and win. They get Michigan in the nightcap of the Frozen Four. In the opening game, it's going to be Boston University in Denver. Some interesting side notes. Denver and Michigan are tied for the most NCAA national championships now with 9. Boston College and Boston University, they both got 5. So kind of interesting little tidbits in this one. Michigan, of course, coming off a very, very rugged regional weekend and a big win, an emotional win over Michigan State and St. Louis, 5-2 a couple of weeks ago. So they get Boston College, and BU and Denver doing battle in the opening game Thursday at 5 o'clock. Michigan, and they've got the most Frozen Four appearances. I want to say 28, or this is their 28th. Denver right behind them. Storied programs, Denver and Michigan. Wouldn't that be something if those two teams would pull off victories on Thursday night and win and play for the 10th, for the team to win the 10th and take the overall lead? I think it's going to be a Herculean task for Michigan to beat Boston College. It's funny, back February 7th, I think, or even January 7th, whatever it was, Michigan was ranked 17th in the pairwise, and they went on a nice roll, making it to the Big Ten championship game, losing to Michigan State, who was ranked in the top 4, and then pulling off the upset in the regional final to beat the Spartans to get to the Frozen Four for a third straight year, second time in the last 20 years that they've been able to do that. But again, you've got a Boston College team that's loaded. It will be an upset if Boston College loses to Michigan. Boston College showed their youth and a little bit of vulnerability against Quinnipiac, so we'll have to wait and see. And Denver and BU, that's going to be a great matchup too. These are going to be 2 wonderful hockey games Thursday evening. So if you like hockey like I do, I know I'll be front and center. I'm going to be pretty bleary-eyed Friday morning, but it's going to be worth it because it's Frozen Four hockey. Can't wait for it to start Thursday night, 5 o'clock Eastern time, the opener, 8:30 the nightcap, the championship game on ESPN, 6 o'clock Saturday night Eastern time. So really looking forward to that. All right, that's going to do it here for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Again, many thanks to Chris Mascaro, the Next on the Tee podcast host. If you love golf like I do, you've got to subscribe to his podcast. He's got a lot of great interviews archived on that one. He's talked to Ben Wright numerous times, as he mentioned in the interview we had earlier in the show. It's Augusta week, so we couldn't think of anybody better. There is nobody better to talk to than Chris Mascaro, as he's been to Augusta 20 times. And he knows what it's like. He's walked the course. He's watched the big name players play, and some great insight. I invite you to check that interview out. We will have that interview on our YouTube network, the Captain Lou Sports Network, too. But again, you can watch the entirety of our show, as always, archived on the 12 Ounce Sports YouTube page and the Captain Lou Sports Network YouTube page. So it's Masters Week, as we mentioned. It looks like the weather is going to be a little tricky on Thursday and potentially Friday. Not looking good for Thursday, but, you know, they'll still get the tournament in. The weekend looks like, the weather forecast looks like it's going to be absolutely amazing down at Augusta. So there's going to be some great golf, great storylines with the LIV players. So check it out starting tomorrow. That's the LIV Golf, or the Masters, the 88th Masters, with both the PGA and the LIV Golf Tours. So it's going to be fun to watch. Can't wait for that to start. A lot of great weekend sports for you. The NHL winding down as they're going to have their wraparound weekend to Tuesday, and then the regular season is all done. And, of course, the Masters and the Frozen Four. All right, everybody. Again, thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. Join us again next Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be back to our normal time. And Jimmy Young will stop by next Wednesday, and we're going to preview the NHL playoffs with Jimmy, and we will take a look back at the Frozen Four weekend, talk a little Masters as well, and whatever else goes on. It's always one heck of a fun time when Jimmy Young joins us, and we'll have a lot of laughs. Until then, Captain Lou saying, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Thanks for joining us, everybody, here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. So